Now comes the rods and reels. Again, when I come up and I talk to the kids, I usually bring both rods up. And I say, does anybody see any difference in these two rods? Well, obviously they do, and they stick their hands up, and I'm gonna say, okay, here's what we're gonna do. And I set one of them back. Makes no difference which one you go with. But there's distinguishing characteristics on each rod and reel that you need to point out to them. This rod has small eyes. These eyes, you know, they get smaller, but the ones closest to the reel are small. And I say these eyes are small eyes. This is a rod that has a trigger underneath it. And the way you grab this rod is you wrap your finger around that trigger and you hold it like that. The rod reel goes on top. This is a casting rod, and I say casting rod, and I don't say it real fast. I say this is a casting rod. A casting rod has a trigger, that's a characteristic of it. It has the small first eye, and the reel is designed to go on top. Three characteristics of a casting rod. Very, very simple. Now, I set this rod down, I lean over here and I pick up this rod, and I say this rod is a spinning rod. Again, folks, remember that the casting rod, the first eye closest to the reel, was a small eye. Is this a small eye? No, they all say no, and it's not a small eye, it's a rather large eye. The reel, this rod does not have a trigger, and this reel is designed to be underneath. Again, since the eyes are down, this reel is designed to be underneath. This is what your trigger is, but you use this by putting your two fingers in between there, or your three fingers like this, depending on how small your hands are. This goes in between your fingers. If I'm a little bitty child and I have small hands, I'm probably gonna put it in between my ring finger and finger. When I fish with this, my hands are larger, I use my middle finger, my ring finger. And then I grab the reel like this and I hold it. Again, this rod does not have a trigger. It has a large eye. The reel is designed to go underneath, and it's called a spinning rod. Those are the identifying and distinguishing characteristics of a spinning rod and a casting rod. Now, how does this reel go on here? This reel goes on this rod very simply. I just take this and I twist the front part of this, and the reel foot comes out and it sits in this reel seat. I catch the heel of the reel foot. This is the heel, the back part of your reel. I catch it right in there. I line it up, and then I just screw that down, and that catches the toe. I don't make it real tight, but I make it snug. Once it's snug, there's a perfectly seated reel on a rod that's designed for this reel. This is a casting or a spinning reel. This is a spinning rod distinguished by a very large first eye. One of the neat components about this reel, when I show this, is that this reel, I'm right-handed, you're left-handed, I'm right-handed. I undo this. This is the most important part of this reel right here, this little bitty button, and I talk about it a zillion times. If this button comes out and falls out on the ground, watch what happens. The handle comes out and I can no longer use the reel. I don't know how many people have come up to me and say, my reel's broken, I don't know, what can I do? And I'll look at it and I'll say, do you have the little screw? And they're like, no. I say, you don't have the screw? Well, that's done, that reel's done. Now, since I'm right-handed, I've taken this apart. I have taken the reel from the left side, and it actually goes right into this hole here. Most reels in this day and age are made, you just take that, put that right in that hole, set it in there. I'll do that one more time. Take that, set it right in that hole very simply. Put it in there, it goes in there. I hold it, I take this, put it right in there, and I screw this down. It goes in very easily, it screws. Once it's done, there, you're ready to go. This one is now the reel is right. I grab it right, there's how it is grabbed. I make my cast, and I'm ready to cast. Underneath here, a lot of kids don't know what this is. I highlight this out. If I twist this and flip this over, I can now reel backwards. If I flip it over now, I can't reel backwards. It stayed, I can only reel one way. This is designed for a reason, and we'll tell you about it later when you need to fight a fish. But most of the time, leave it over so that your reel only reels one way. You don't want it to reel backwards and forwards. It just tangles up your line. Flip it over so that it reels one way and you're in good shape. How you cast this reel, you take this rod, I'm going to loosen this bail up a little bit. You take it, you make sure that it comes around right here. You grab your reel, your line with your index finger, and then you flip your bail over. Now, this is holding there on my index finger. When I go to cast it, I just make a cast and I just cast the reel, letting this slip off my finger as I cast it. I'll just move my finger and it goes out. Again, pull this out. I bring it around. This will come directly where it needs to be. I grab it with my index finger. I've opened my bail. When I go to cast it, I just flip my wrist, but I move my finger, and that would have cast. To reel it up, it's very simple, just like that. The casting rod is a little bit different. Again, the casting rod has a trigger, has a small eye. The closest eye to the reel is much, much smaller than the spinning. This is called the casting. And the reel is on top because the eyes are on top. Again, it seats the same way. Putting your reel on your rod, you just unscrew this. You catch the toe. You put the heel, there's my reel seat, it's called a reel seat. I put the heel of the reel in that seat. Lay it down there, and I just screw this down, catching the toe. Again, I just make it secure. I don't make it real tight. I just make it secure, and there it's seated. In order to cast this, it's the same motion. I still use my wrist back and forth. It's like you have a hammer, back and forth, but you hold it down here, correct it. You take your thumb and you press on this button, and you hold it. If I release the button, my bait goes down. I hold my finger here using the trigger. I hold my button, hold my thumb on it, and then to cast it, I would just make a nice little forward cast, moving my thumb, and where I move my thumb and I point in the direction, my bait is going to go where I threw it. Again, it's a very easy motion. Move your thumb, so like you're using a hammer, like you slam it down, and your bait's going to go out there. That's the two distance. Again, before I get done, I pick both of them up, and then I turn to the parents and I say, parents, if you're going to buy your son or daughter a rod and reel, make sure that you buy a spinning rod or a casting rod and a spinning reel and a casting reel design, because they will work on the other rods, but it's like putting your left shoe on your right foot. It doesn't look good. When we teach the casting stroke, it's very important that you teach the casting stroke this way. They will grow into other methods and other sidearm strokes, etc. They can use the flip and pitch, but I don't want you to teach that. I want you to teach the casting stroke like this. And I use it as a hammer motion. It's the chop motion, it's the hammer motion. It's where I take my rod and reel and I turn and I face the water and I pull it back and I just make a nice cast, pointing my rod in the direction where I go. I want to do that very, very carefully. I want to do it very precisely so that as I do it, I take it, it comes straight back over, I make a cast and it goes straight out. Please don't teach it by going sideways right off the bat, because what you're going to have, you can cast sideways, so can I, but what you're going to have is a 6th or 7th grader, and they're going to hit the person standing next to them, or they're going to cast their bait and they're going to throw it and it's going to go down here and your hooks are going to get tangled up in somebody else. Yes, the sidearm stroke is an important stroke, and they will eventually use it as we do also. But when you're teaching it, teach both of them. Here, Larry, hold this, please. Again, teach both of them to where they go. They look forward, they go like this, they make a cast, and they point their rod with the follow-through in the direction where they want the bobber to go. We don't want them to go like this and have the bobber go over there. If it does, it means that they're going sideways, not in the direction we want it. We want it to go straight over, out where they're pointing. The last station, that we're going to talk about today, is the rules and regulations. Now, this is a station that I want you to contact your local game wardens in your area and say, listen, we're running a kids fish camp. We need you to come out and teach these kids about the rules and regulations of the state and about how to properly measure fish and why it's important to buy a fishing license. And when I do that, they love to come out because this is what they do, and this is a good outreach program for Texas Parks and Wildlife, because their local game wardens are not seen as somebody that's going to come out and arrest them. They're coming out and they're educating. So what we have here We have our fresh and saltwater guides. We have that there at the table. We have rules. Here's the Texas Parks and Wildlife Rules and Regulations for 2010-2011. Each individual state will have their own. This is a little bit more information about basic fishing. It tells a lot of the things about fishing that we have, what's necessary. Again, this will be in their captain's bag, but we have it there to show them, and we let the game wardens talk about it. A couple of things, get you a bump board or a measuring board. I call them a bump board because this is the way you bump your fish on it. I made these. You will get some in your kit, but again, make some fish. This is very simple. This is the way I carry my fish. I got a stringer full of fish all the time. You know, I take them, I make them, I just cut them out, paint them. It's a good project. And then you teach the kids how to lay the fish down, touching the nose on the board, and how to measure the fish. And you do it by rotating the wood. Well, that's not quite 17. That one is under that. So if they measure the bottom one, that's the smaller fish. This is a little bit larger. Again, when you teach proper measurement, and in the rules and regulations book, you do need to squeeze the tail. All this information is stated in the annuals, but your game wardens will tell you that.
And the mouth needs to be closed.
Another fish that you can have if you don't have the wooden fish is find a grandmother, somebody who sews, and just go through your scrap yarn. And these are fun. The kids like these. They're cute, they're soft. Again, we just want to give them something to measure. That's all. They don't need to be any specific size. They don't even need to look like a fish. The kids won't know the difference. They'll lay them down there, they'll measure them. This one is much bigger than this one. All we're doing is trying to get them in the habit of learning to measure their fish, and those that they can throw back, you know, keep a couple, boys and girls, but throw the rest of them back so that you can come back tomorrow and catch more fish. These fish are colorful. The kids love them. It's a lot of fun. It makes grandma or somebody feel important to make them for you. Ask your community. Maybe your wife says, maybe you sew. Make some fish, get 8 or 10 of them so that the kids can measure them. It's very important that you have something for each of these children when you're teaching them to have something in their hands and make them practice it. Again, this is the perfect station to have a local game warden become part of your program, and he'll help you. They love to volunteer for this. It's a great thing. Reach out to them and you'll be real surprised.